Alright guys, welcome back to another perfect start guide. Today we'll continue the series with Assassin's Creed Shadows. After spending close to 80 hours in it, here are some of the best things you should get right away within the first few hours, including a really awesome Assassin's Armor and Legendary Trinket, an amazing set of weapons, and best unlocks that will literally be useful all the way into the endgame. Now, the moment you finish the prologue, you can already get an amazing legendary trinket built for damage called Amaterasu's Blessing right here further west from your spawn point in Izumi. So it's pretty much going to be right here at the old Kofun. This is going to be the version for Naue. In this case, if you make your way over there further west, you will eventually find this opening in the wall. So if you pass through it, you're going to reach some underground tunnels. I highly encourage you to discover everything here because you will find some other treasure chests that give you some extra mats as well as weapon skins, but eventually you're going to reach this larger pond area. And in this one, you're going to have to use your grappling hook to jump 2 times, reach the other side, and then open up the final legendary chest inside. And once you open that up, you're going to get Amaterasu's Blessing. This gives you 10% extra damage for every unused ability slot. So since you can have up to 4 abilities for every weapon, that's up to 40% extra damage when none of them are on cooldown. So especially useful for a melee build. Now from this point on, I recommend paying attention to these knowledge point locations. You can see with the orange markers, I marked them already on the map for you. But go to some of these temples, shrine areas, as well as the Kujikiris, which are basically Naue's memories, and complete them. You will need about 6 or 7 of these in total to reach the second tier of skills very early on in the first Izumi map. And in this case, if you do that, eventually you're going to reach this second tier for pretty much every single one of your skill trees. And once you do that, I recommend going straight to the assassinations line and get the double assassinates as well as these 2 assassinate upgrades, damage 1 and ground version to the right and the left side of it. So especially double assassinations, you can now perform it whenever you have a Tanto equipped, and that's going to make clearing speeds much quicker, especially since you're going to be fighting heaps of enemies. But later down the line, I will show you a piece of gear that will let you assassinate a 3rd target with a kunai, which is going to be very awesome. Now from here, it's your choice if you want to continue the main story mission for now and go straight to the hideout, or if you want to complete your armor set. But I'm going to continue with the armor set since obviously it's the items we started with. But in this case, you can get an amazing legendary Tanto that gives you a ton of slowed down speed, and that's going to be right here at the Tozuku's lair a bit further up north. So this is going to be a very small enemy encampment slash village, but there's going to be a legendary chest inside this house. So simply take care of the enemies or ignore them, your choice, but then make your way inside and open up the large legendary chest right here. And this is going to drop the Igan Sunset, which has a slow down time ability whenever you perform Escape Strike. Escape Strike being this skill right here in the Tanto skill line. And this means you can now pretty much slow down time almost all the time because Escape Strike is very easy to spam. You just have to dodge in the middle of a charged heavy or a charged light attack. So it's going to give you a lot of time to maneuver, check out your surroundings, or just better plan ahead as you have plenty of time now to assess the situation and take down your targets. Now for the next set pieces of legendary quality, you're going to need to fight some very strong samurai, which may not be that easy to assassinate. In this case, I recommend going for a temporary epic item, which is this cowl right here that we'll find at the Path of Valor for absolutely free without any fighting. It's going to be a bit further up north, pretty much northeast of Amagasuki, but in this case it just involves a quick jumping puzzle. So once you're here, simply follow the yellow lines, just make your way up the mountain up until you reach the other end, point at which you can open up the chest, complete the puzzle, and that's going to give you this really awesome Tamakichi hood, which comes with +1 health, segment removed on air assassinations, something that you're going to do quite often from this point on. And now that we have everything we need, we can now take on the Daisho Samurai, which are quite difficult at this stage in the game for us, but now we should be more than capable of instantly assassinating them. And for this, we're going to head over to some of the castles in the first region, the first one being the Katano Castle. The thing about this is that every single one of these castles will have a one-time legendary chest that you can only open up by defeating all the samurai daisho in that specific location. So in this case, Katano has only 2 that we have to defeat. So here is where you're going to find both of the samurai. The first one will spawn to the right side of the main building with a viewpoint, so you can simply spot it the moment you fast travel in. And the second one will be further up to the northeastern corner of the castle. So to show you on the map, the first one is right here in between these buildings, and the other one will be here in the northeastern corner doing its own patrol route there. So let's go to the first one. I'm gonna make my way downwards, and as you can see, we're gonna try to get him in between these buildings so nobody can see us. In this case, if you have level 7 and some of the items I covered before, you should have enough damage to instantly assassinate it. And by the way, this will also give us a mastery point. We can immediately invest into some extra skills. All of these samurai will give us extra mastery points when we assassinate them. But from this point on, I'm making my way using the outer wall portion, as this is going to avoid 90% of the enemies. And if there's any spotters or snipers, I will just take them down just in case. But I'm going to make my way now towards that far northeastern corner of the castle, as that's where that second samurai spawns in. And lo and behold, this is its route. If it's not here, just wait until it exits the building. But in this case, instant assassination, which is going to achieve the same thing. Now we have 2 out of 2 and another mastery point. And now that both of them are taken care of, we can head over back to the main building rooftop and use the trapdoor here, as we only need to go down a couple of levels. So from the attic, we're gonna drop once, pay attention to any enemies and take them down, and then we're gonna drop once again paying attention to any enemies. And you should already spot the chest if you use your eagle vision. In this case, it will be protected by an enemy, but if you take it down, this is going to give you access to that chest. Opening this up will give you the first item inside, which is this really awesome legendary armor piece. The skill on this will let you throw a kunai at the closest enemy after an assassination, so this is going to be especially useful if not all enemies are in melee range. You can simply input the attack button, either of them, and now we will perform this instant throw that usually takes down enemies in one shot, especially useful even as you progress in the game. Which brings us to our last armor piece of legendary quality, a legendary headgear that lets you spam your abilities a bit easier. And that's going to be right here at the Takatsuki Castle, but that's going to be at the northest point of the map, which feels far away but will very much be worth it. In this case, we're gonna have to do something similar but take down 3 samurai instead of just 2. So here is where all of them spawn. The first samurai will be right next to the tallest building with the viewpoint, so pretty much right below you when you load in. Second one will be a bit further down south here in this main courtyard, and the final third one will be onto one of the outer walls patrolling here in this other region. Here's a better visualization of that as you load in. The first one is going to be right below you. Second one is, if you pay attention to that rooftop, that's the one we're going to use to assassinate the second one. And the third and final is going to be right here doing its own patrol by the water. So let's go downward and assassinate the first samurai, which is going to have its own patrol as well. Before it jumps in, I recommend also instantly one-shotting with the kunai this target right here. It will make things easier for us in a little bit. If you're high enough, you should have enough damage to instantly assassinate, but also take care of any targets that might spot you. And from this point on, we're just gonna follow to the outer wall and continue up this smaller section. So simply follow my footsteps up until we reach that courtyard I was talking about. And once you're here, simply jump to the right side and go to the top of this smaller house and pay attention to the second daisho, as it should be right below you. So go ahead and instantly assassinate it. You can also take down any of the extra targets as they spawn or load in. Now from this point on, you can go straight to the target, but I recommend circling around, as that's going to give you a better view of it and an easier encounter at this stage. So in this case, after dispatching the enemies, I'm just using the rooftops and basically making my way to the outer wall section, at least from the first section. And from here, you can simply follow it and circle around. Eventually, you're going to reach this in-between sort of area where you will spot a bunch of enemies as well as the third samurai. But if you pay attention to it, you should spot an explosive on its route trajectory, so I recommend making use of that to deal some extra damage. And if you're quick on your toes, you should have enough time to not be spotted and squeeze in a full assassination so that you don't have to fight it normally. Once all of these are taken care of, simply head over back to the main castle. One of the upper levels will eventually hold that chest, open it up, and you're going to get the legendary Peasant Hat. And this gives you a 100% of an adrenaline chunk upon entering combat, so you can immediately go ahead and use one of your main skills. Very useful actually, as you don't have to deal damage normally and build up that extra adrenaline chunk, or if you already have multiple of them but want more adrenaline chunks, you can maybe cast an even stronger ability outright the moment you start combat. But now that we're done with all of this, it's time to follow back with the main story and immediately go to From Spark to Flame, which is basically the first mission that unlocks your hideout, as well as many of its special buildings and features, of which there are two main ones we're going to use for now: the Kakurega, which is basically your safe houses, as well as the Forge, which is going to give you more item upgrades. But specifically the first one is the Kakurega. This is going to give you some major bonuses. One is that you will now spot multiple safe houses popping all around map regions, especially in areas you normally don't have fast travel points. So I recommend immediately unlocking them in the major towns and cities you normally can't fast travel to initially. But there's even more benefits inside, one of which is contracts, and contracts refresh every single time the season changes. And they are some of the main sources of extra materials, such as minerals, for example, that you will need to both build and also upgrade buildings at the safe house. So definitely something to check very often. Plus from here you can restock your supplies and even replenish your scouts before the seasons actually end, something that will come in very handy in just a little bit. Plus, later down the line, we can upgrade this with even more features besides contracts to also get extra rumors in every single region, but more on that in just a little bit. Now, once you're done with this, we're going to get 2 more scouts in a total of 4 compared to just the 2 ones that we start with by default, by just completing this Finding New Allies side mission that unlocks literally right next to your hideout. So go over here, just talk to these NPCs, and now they're pretty much yours, and now you're going to have 4 scouts instead of just 2, which is going to help a ton with objective discovery, also to clear out wanted levels, and in just a little bit get a ton of resources every season for you. Which brings us to the next power of the scouts, and that is going to be the ability to mark resources at castle and have your scouts steal them for you over time. You will oftentimes spot these locked areas with a ton of resources that you normally can't carry yourself, but you can mark so that your scouts come in and steal them. And as you can see, they cost 2 scout points each, so we now can get 2 of these resources just from one single run. But check this out, I just told you that we can actually reset the scouts, so what I'm going to do is head over back at any of my hideouts, go ahead and in this case replenish 2 scouts, and now we can go back to the same location and mark the 3rd item as well. So now when the season actually ends and we begin a new season, we're gonna get even more resources out of it. So that is why I recommend replenishing the scouts and marking as many of these resources before the seasons end, to take advantage of the season progression. By the way, the seasons change as you progress in stories and especially the main campaign, and once you can pass the season to the next, you're going to see this icon appearing on the map that you can now go ahead and press to change the season, but it's also going to trigger automatically if you fast travel once that becomes available. Once this is done, we're going to now focus on the Forge, as we really need to upgrade and provide more perks to our gear, and you will just follow the mission Way of the Blacksmith, which is going to bring you pretty much to Sakai Port, and here you're going to find the blacksmith over there. It's a very quick one, you just have to talk to an NPC after rescuing him, and he's going to now become your blacksmith, which now lets you build the Forge. And if you followed my instructions and got all of those resources like I said, or if the season already passed, yeah, you're going to now have enough to basically level up the Forge to at least a level 2 as well. So in this case, at level 1 Forge, you can only now upgrade your items to your current level, which is very good as it is. If you're level 10 plus, it means that the Tanto we got at low level can now pretty much almost double its damage, if not more, depending how far you have progressed since then. So something that you should always do anyway. But at level 2, we can now upgrade our items to even higher levels, but also apply extra engravings / perks to the gear that supports it. So since we got full legendary items, it means we have extra of those perk slots we can now occupy with the automatic perks we got when we got the forge. So in this case, what I recommend going for is especially armor damage, since Naoe is a bit weak against armor early on. So this is going to help you more to reach enemies' health bars and take them down that much quicker. In the case of other builds, you can totally go with whatever you prefer instead. For example, you can definitely make use of extra adrenaline perks, or even ones that have armor penetration altogether in case you want to go with that route. But right now, these are some of your best options. In case you're lacking some of those resources or the season hasn't passed yet, like I said, pay attention to the contracts. The first one, or at least one of the first batches, should have one of these contracts with a ton of minerals, since that's going to be one of your biggest caps right now. Go ahead and complete it. Usually it's an enemy camp that you can easily take down, and then just steal all of the resources they already hoarded, both the ones laying around as well as the one from the main objective chest, which are going to give you tons more on top. A few rounds of this and you should be more than capable to reach level 3 forge literally from this very moment. And all of this brings us to the final bit, which is going to be about unlocking your first very useful companion, Yaya. But this is something that you can completely miss out upon if you don't choose the proper options. Plus, at the end of this quest chain, you will also get this really awesome legendary Death Whisperer Kusarigama, so more on that in just a little bit. But in the meantime, you're going to want to go immediately to the Wounded quest chain. This is going to be rather quickly, but in this one you're going to encounter Yaya, and I recommend picking all the dialogues that either say killing is wrong or we should forgive the enemies. In this case, that's going to ensure that she's going to join your side, and then you can use her as a companion in combat. Otherwise, she's going to refuse joining you and you can no longer get her. So I've done that both at the end of the main story quest chain, and I've done the same in her secondary quest, the Stray Dogs, that followed up immediately after. In all of these dialogue choices I had in these missions, I chose the options of forgiveness, so that ensured that at the end of the quest chain, when I asked her to join me as an ally, she fully accepted it. I did have a different playthrough in which I did the opposite and she never joined me at all, so be careful about that. But now that she joins you, she's going to be your ally. You can assign her as an ally at any given moment. You're going to have quite a few of these, but she's actually quite useful at this stage. You can pretty much call upon her at any time as a distraction, but also as a nice source of damage. Unfortunately, allies don't last for too long, just like 10-20 seconds give or take, but that's going to be enough to take down a bunch of enemies or at least provide a distraction in case you're having some trouble. Besides that, you're also going to get at the end of that quest, before starting her actual side mission, this really awesome Kusarigama right here of legendary quality. So I really like this one because it gives you 200% damage on enemy collisions. So as you can see right here, it absolutely smashes targets with a heavy AoE attack. So absolutely something that you should get. Kusarigama is amazing in case you're bored with the katana or the Tanto gameplay. And that should pretty much ensure you have the perfect start right now in Assassin's Creed Shadows. Obviously, there are many more other locations with other areas and other legendary gear you can find, but in Izumi specifically, these are going to be some of the best. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.